you're getting involved in some DraftKings. DraftKings, they've scaled out their tournaments this year. So if you want to get involved for $10, $50, 50,000, you're going to be involved in the main event, the ATS pool. And I think you said, how much is it to enter? 500?
Yeah, the main event is 500. That's it's a pretty wide disparity, isn't it, between 500 and 50,000? But hey, you got choices for all types of sports bettors out there. So I'll be in the 500 one. At least one entry in that one. Not able to get out to Circa this year. It's really heartbreaking, but you got to get to Vegas to enter that contest. So I have to be in a contest of some sort. This year it's DK.
So, Chris, we always talk about strategy, right, in these contests, but I'll ask you in this fashion, when does strategy kick in, right? Because I think at the beginning, it's easy to talk about strategy, but you just got to pick winners until a point, then you can get strategic, right? Strategy doesn't come along until a little bit later, or maybe it comes earlier.
Yeah, no, I think that's really sharp advice, right? You just want to get off to a good start. We know all the Circa first place finishers so far have hit around 70% ATS, which if that sounds or feels impossible, it is for most people, right? You need some luck. But since that's the case, you're talking, you need 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, hopefully all 5 picks almost every single week. And if you get off to a rough start, it's really tough already to climb yourself out of there. So you just want to start strong. And since there are so many contestants now, right, the brand of Circa is certainly growing. The brand of DK is certainly growing. There are going to be more contestants. So if you're at a good spot halfway through the season, I would say usually around halfway is when I start looking at, well, not only do I have to make the right picks, but I might consider some contrarian picks on top of it, right? Trying not to pick what the rest of the crowd is picking as well. So, you do have to start to consider some of those contest strategy options as well, right? Because it's not just about winning.
Well, you mentioned starting strong. You finished 5th in 2021. There were plenty of contestants that year. Can you walk us through the kind of stretch run? Because I would imagine you start to grip a little bit. You start to get a little nervous, maybe start to think what your competitors are going to do at that point. Can you walk us through the stretch run in 2021 when you finished 5th?
Yeah, I believe we were in around 200th place. Don't quote me on this, but with a few weeks left, we were in about from 200 to 150, I believe, like in that range. And it's something I've just been trying to tell people about betting in general, but especially if you're in a contest, as much as you want to go contrarian there at the end, stick with what you know. It's very hard to have an expert's grasp on every NFL team, right? All 32 teams, everything about the locker room, offense, defense, coaches, even after all that, a pretty big sample size at that point in the season. So we stuck to, my buddy who joined it with me, he was an Eagles fan. I'm a Giants fan. We stuck to a lot of NFC East, stuck to the teams that we felt that we were stronger with at that point, that we had really solid power ratings based on results throughout the season, and we didn't really deviate, right? We kept on coming back to the same teams. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what those teams were, but at that point in the season, you should have a good self-awareness of where you've done well that season. What are your tendencies? And then hopefully at the end, you kind of have an edge from that perspective because you're evaluating your own performance throughout the season and maybe some things you got wrong too, and some teams you might want to avoid at the end. So that's what we did. We didn't think as much contrarian that year. We just ended up getting a lot of 4-1s and 5-0s in those final weeks. And also you need a little bit of luck, guys. You always need a little bit of luck down that stretch. I think it was week 18. The Bills were facing, I believe, the Jets at the time. Had no reason to cover, still covered that game, and that was probably a $50,000 difference for us.
How, as it went along, and as you got deeper, and you felt like you were going to get something out of this, whatever it was, how did the viewing habits change? Because I actually placed in a 6-week contest at one point, and by the time I got to the last week and I thought I was going to have a crack at like about $50,000, that week I just sat in my room by myself and watched every single game that I had something on. Did the viewing habits change at all? Did you get more ornery as it went along because you were actually in on something?
Oh, it was really nerve-wracking. I think we were at 1 or 2 bars pretty much every Sunday. It was like our main spot. We stuck to it. I can't say that we had our emotions in check the entire time. I would say I've had some growth since then as far as the emotional roller coaster that you could take yourself on, right? Because in the NFL, the volatility alone is going to create some losses. But no, we didn't have necessarily any routines in place as far as that goes, but we did always watch it together. I think that kind of increased the camaraderie. If you got people who support you, or if you're just in it by yourself, you could just be around people who know you and support you in the contest. I think that's a big part of it, because it gets very nerve-wracking there at the end.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.